The Isle of Man Constabulary's Chief Constable has just published his latest annual report. And the good news is the Isle of Man is still the safest place to live in the British Isles. But crime is up. So let's have a look at the latest local crime statistics. Firstly, let's clarify what safest place in the British Isles actually means. Now, if you look at the map, you're going to see there's Great Britain, then there's the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and then there's the British Isles, which is the overall term of the British Islands or the British Island Group. And the statistics claim that we are indeed the safest place to live in the overall wonderful big group of British islands. And that's a great fact, and that's lovely to hear. But of course, as with all statistics, there's always a little caveat, and that is how you interpret the stats, which stats you use to make your point. Because in some respects, if you go to this annual report, you will find that Jersey and Guernsey actually have a lower per 1,000 lower per capita crime rate than the Isle of Man. But in other stats and in overall statistics, if you use the right stat to make your point, you will find that the Isle of Man is indeed the safest place in the whole of the British Isles. So with that out of the way, it may be safe here, but just like anywhere else in the world, there is crime. And I did the work for you and had a read through the annual report of the Chief Constable. So join me here for a quick look at the key figures and headline numbers from it. Last year, the Joint Emergency Services Control Room received 14,740 calls for action, which led to 2,862 recorded crimes. That is an increase of 7% over the previous year. But before you now panic, the Chief Constable is very keen in his report to point out that an increase in anti-drug operations, that a more lively nighttime economy, and an increase in the work to tackle antisocial behavior has led to more crimes being recorded. So his message basically is there wasn't more crime, we just recorded more, we found out more, we did more policing. That's his message, which seems reasonably fair. Also worth pointing out here that this year's statistics do include some offences that were not offences last year. For example, drug driving. That wasn't a thing here. Well, I mean, people did it, but you couldn't be done for it last year. Now, during the last year, they brought in the drug tests. So, of course, anyone who got done for drug driving, and there were quite a few, that would pop up in this year's statistics. Where there has been an increase is actually in criminal damage and theft. And I'm going to get to that in a sec in the more detailed figures. But yeah, 7% increase overall, but the Chief Constable says, don't panic, it's not as bad as it looks.
Nothing to see here, please!
Last year saw 1,877 arrests, of which 240 were juveniles. Over £1.9 million worth of illegal drugs were seized, 141 search warrants were recorded, £105,000 in fines were collected, and 503 digital examinations were carried out. The overall detection rate stood at 48%, which is considerably higher than anywhere else in the British Isles and is 1% higher than last year and a whopping 5% higher than 2 years ago. So well done, more crime detected, that's a good thing. So let's have a look at the various categories. I looked through the report so you don't have to. Of course, I'm linking to it in the description, but here are some of the key figures and key categories when it comes to crime on the island. So-called offences against the person, which includes serious and common assault, as well as rarer offences such as murder, stood at 658, which is an increase of 1%. There were no murders on the Isle of Man last year, but the most common offence in this category is indeed the common assault, which stood at 556 cases. And if I had to guess why that is, I would say a lot of it has to do with alcohol, because that's sort of the main kind of crime. It's either alcohol or drugs where we get the most offences, as you'll see. Theft and kindred offences, which includes theft, burglary, proceeds of crime, all that kind of thing, stood at 581 recorded offences, which is an increase of 21%. Among them, there were around 60 burglaries of different types, as well as 150-ish attempted and completed occurrences of shoplifting. Again, if I had to guess, I would say that probably the increase in the cost of living has something to do with that. People here are struggling more than before. It's not getting easier, not getting cheaper, so more people might be tempted to apply a 5-finger discount when they're out shopping, which of course is sad. In addition to those cases, there were a recorded 12 mobile phone thefts and 19 bicycle thefts. Now, that doesn't mean there were only 12 and 19 of those, because they are very low numbers, right? But this is recorded crime. So again, with all these statistics, it's important to note that this is what's being recorded by the police, not necessarily what actually occurred. Having said that, it's still pretty rare to get your stuff nicked here. And I believe there were around about 30 occurrences of things being stolen from cars, which I'm guessing were just people leaving their cars unlocked and opportunistic thieves having a go. Because organized crime or car theft rings and all that, as I'm sure you know from my other videos, is virtually unknown here. I mean, we're in Ireland. If you nick a car, where are you going to go, right? That's the harbor. They're just going to wait there for you and arrest you. So offences against property, which includes criminal damage, arson, all that kind of thing, stood at 559 recorded crimes. That's an increase of 12% compared to last year. And the most common offences recorded were criminal damage and damage to motor vehicles. Drugs offences stood at 480 recorded crimes, which is a decrease of 9%. And the most common offence here was possession of Class B drugs, which of course includes cannabis. And this is a bit of a weird one because the Isle of Man government will very happily give you a license to grow medical cannabis on the Isle of Man. It's their latest economic diversification strategy. But if you live here, if you're just a resident and you just want to smoke the herb, as you would be allowed to do in Canada or many US states by now, it is still very strictly prohibited. And they will arrest you and do you if they catch you with some marijuana, as a lot of people found out last year. But yeah, I mean, selling drugs here in general is a pretty stupid idea. It's a small island, everyone knows everyone. The police doesn't exactly have a hard time catching people. They will catch you eventually. So as 480 people found out last year. There were 187 public order offences recorded last year, which is a minus of 12%. 91 sexual offences, which are down by 4% compared to last year, but these included 52 recorded indecent assaults and, I'm very sad to say, 32 recorded rapes. There were 71 fraud offences, which is an increase of 16%. Again, could be loads of reasons why people are trying to defraud others. The most common category here, if I remember correctly, was fraud by misrepresentation. There were 67 offences relating to police, and that doesn't mean that the cop has committed any offences. These are offences against police officers. For example, assault police, assault prison officer, perverting the course of justice, all that kind of thing falls in there. 67 of those, an increase of 22%. There were 36 offensive weapons crimes, which is down by 14%, so that's good. In total, 668 road traffic collisions, or crashes as you and me would call it, which unfortunately included 2 fatal ones. But this is still a decrease overall in the number of road traffic collisions of 2%, which is great. Now, if you look at the report and the stats, there's a little map in there, and you will see that most crashes you would probably guess happen on the mountain road or the TT course, but it doesn't really seem to be the case. Most minor banks and crashes where there's only damage or injury happen here in Douglas. I don't know if that means people of Douglas can't drive, but well, it's the biggest city. It's the only city, but it's the biggest place, so naturally probably most people crash around here. Mental health incidents were up by 14% and stood at 110. If I had to guess, again, I would say probably the cost of living crisis and cost cuttings in services and that kind of thing probably contributed. It's not getting easier. People are reaching breaking point. Domestic abuse cases are down by 2%, but unfortunately still stand at 683, which is never a nice number to see. Geographically, most crimes on the Isle of Man were recorded. You can probably guess it. There, Douglas. And in particular, actually, yes, this area that you can see down there by the sea terminal, there's a ward called Victoria South, or a map on the crime map that they use. 462 crimes were recorded there. Now that includes the area where Strand Street is, sea terminal, a lot of people congregate there. It makes total sense that most crimes would be recorded there. If you leave our glorious city, you will see crime statistics drop drastically. Among the safest places with the fewest recorded crimes on the island are Maloo North, Santon, Arbury, Ballaugh, Lexi and Bright with one. They recorded 1 crime last year. So obviously not many people living up there, but it's kind of cool that they had 1 recorded crime in Bright last year. So very safe place up north. Just like in the UK, Isle of Man bobbies on the beat are not armed, but we do of course have a dedicated firearms team, an armed response unit. That unit was deployed a grand total of 27 times last year. 11 of those deployments were planned, which I'm guessing means VIP escorts, that kind of thing. Not a lot, quite understandable, because we don't really have gang warfare, people running around with weapons shooting each other, all that kind of thing over here. We leave it up to the UK. So being an armed response officer here looks like a relatively relaxed job. Of course, they would probably tell me it isn't, but on the face of it, it gives you a good idea of the type of crime we get here. Of course, police does use force here. Whenever they use a certain level of force, they have to fill in what's called a use of force report. Of those, 90 were filed last year. And of those 90 reports, 51 were for the deployment of pepper spray. And only one of them was for the use of a taser. So the fact that they only had to deploy a taser once, again, tells you a lot about the type of crime and offenses that occur over here. And it really is, most of it, fine, assault might not be petty, but it's what I would call generally petty. And you're looking at, Class B drug stuff, you're looking at drunk and disorderly, that kind of thing. Where sometimes when you read the news, you really kind of think, like, did you really have to arrest him for that? But it is what it is, and it is a very safe place, and most crime that we do get is minor. Finally, a quick look at the actual number of officers we have over here. 85,000 people live on this beautiful island, and they are protected by just 223 police officers. That's it. That's all we have. It's not really a lot when you look at the numbers, is it? I mean, they recorded thousands of crimes, 2,000 and something crimes. They are out and about on patrol every day. They have to cover 24/7 all the towns and the city. 223 people, they are being kept busy. We like to joke that they have nothing to do here, but if you look at the numbers, they must be stretched thin a little bit, especially if you count in, holidays and TT and people off sick and that kind of thing. Among those, last year we did see grumblings coming up in terms of, officers being more vocal about the fact that they too are struggling with the cost of living. And if I was the chief minister, the police is not a service I would scrimp on if you want to keep this wonderful headline, because this, safest place in the British Isles, that is a headline that you want as a place that is trying to promote immigration and trying to get economically active people to move here. That is the best sales ad, right? No marketing agency in the world can sell you that. But you need to do something about it to keep that. And it feels like the government could do more. Maybe, employ a few less managers in their own ranks that we don't need. And look a bit more after the frontline guys, the police, the health service, those guys. I think we should do more. But anyway, 223 cops look after us, 85,000 people, and they managed to make us the safest place in the British Isles. So, thank you for that. Thank you for all the hard work. Thank you for making it the wonderful place it is. And thank you for watching this video, for this quick look through the Chief Constable's annual report. Again, I link to it below. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more Isle of Man related videos, everything from motorsport to politics, you name it. If you have suggestions, comments, comment below. And that's it. I'll see you next time.